My question is that if we're to follow these 4 criteria for aggression, we have limited resources to pursue all nations that should be pursued. Shouldn't we pursue the ones that are more of a danger in the future to us as a nation?
Well, I'm still, okay, that's audible to all. Okay, if it's intelligible to you, it isn't to me. I'm awfully sorry to say. I mean, I don't know what example you have in mind where these scarce resources might have been better employed. Iran has not invaded neighboring countries. It's been the victim of invasion. Actually, the Iranians have been on the same side as we have been against Saddam Hussein, against the Taliban, and against Milosevic. They've not violated the Genocide Convention. It's pretty clear to me they've been cheating on the NPT, but that's only been found out because of the tremendous non-proliferation knock-on effects of the invasion of Iraq, which, if you notice, as well as disarming Iraq itself and certifying it as disarmed, got Libya to capitulate and hand over all its toxic and fissile stocks. They're all down to lock and key in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. From those stocks, it was possible to walk back the cap to the A.Q. Khan nuclear Walmart in Pakistan and to find out the Iranians in the cheating that they've been doing, which is our main quarrel with them now. It's true that the Iranians sponsor international gangsterism, and I think should be made to pay for it. We know the names of the Iranian ministers who blew up the Jewish Cultural Center in Buenos Aires, who sent death squads to Berlin to kill the Kurds meeting in the Mykonos restaurant, who tried to kill Salman Rushdie for writing a novel, and many other things. I think that shouldn't be without cost, but you can't really invade a country just for that. We know furthermore that Iran is a potential democracy, that it has elections where the people vote for their candidates who just aren't allowed to take office or power. This is not quite the same as the totalitarian nightmare of Iraq. So I'm sorry, I can't see the force of your question, and even if there were some more and better examples, it doesn't seem to me that there would be any case for exempting Saddam Hussein from the judgment that must fall on a government that is a serial violator on these 4 crucial questions.
I don't set up criterion and decide which countries we could intervene and invade and which countries we shouldn't and how we should do it. Because what I've argued, my burden of my argument tonight has been that we have, that the U.S., first of all, we aren't operative. It isn't we, it's these U.S. rulers, and they don't represent our interests no more than they represent the interests of these countries. They are not motivated by Mr. Hitchens' 4 criteria. They're motivated by interests that have been long-standing. They have invaded about 80, they have intervened in about 80 or 90 different countries around the world. In Africa alone, about 50 countries, there's only 53 on the whole continent, 50 countries have received U.S. military aid. The U.S. has supported about 11 major wars in Africa over the last 30 years and consistently doing that. About 7 million people have died in Africa. It's one of the most war-torn continents in the world because of U.S. interventions. And to sit there with a presumption and say, well, who should we invade? Who should we invade? Who should we not? No, Iran maybe qualifies for one of those criteria, but not the other 3, or maybe none of them at all. And to do that kind of game is to overlook really the huge picture and the terrible crimes that have been perpetrated. And the more war-ravaged Africa is, and Africa is a very valuable country. We get about 70% of all major minerals from Africa, from cobalt to chromium to manganese to any bunch of all sorts of other things, gold. To not see that the more war-ravaged these countries become, the more torn apart they are by U.S. interventions in part. It's not the only, I'm not saying that's the only factor. The poorer they are and the more willing and ready they are to sell their resources and their labor at pitiful prices. And that's the goal. The goal is to keep the world poor. The more hungry, the more impoverished you are, the harder you will work for less and less. And that's the goal of this administration, the reactionaries in this administration today. The reactionaries, they're not conservatives. A conservative is somebody who resists any kind of egalitarian changes because he wants to maintain his particular privileges. These people aren't resisting change. They are vigorously pursuing changes. They are reactionaries. Their goal is to get us back to 1900. Why do you think that Americans don't work for 17 cents an hour the way people do in Haiti or Indonesia? Is it because we're so much more self-respecting? No, it's because we have reached a stage of historical struggle where we don't have to do that, and the goal is to get us back. In 1900, the United States was a third world country, half a century before the term had been invented. We had typhoid epidemics in the eastern cities. We had mass underemployment. We had hardly any public education to speak of. There were almost no human services. The human services consisted of a soup kitchen in the back of some church, maybe, Salvation Army or something like that. And people did work for subsistence wages. And that's where they'd like to get us back. Not just the Africans, not just the Middle East, not just any place else. The goal is a class victory. The goal is to get you working harder and harder for less and less, which means more for them. To get rid of these bad habits of you thinking you have a right to a paid vacation, to job security, to health care, to environmental protection, all that stuff. All the money spent on those stupid things is one less dollar that goes into my pocket. And so the goal is to make the world safe for the Fortune 500. Not just economic plunder and money as such, but it's a whole class, society, and system. And
1 minute.
You could have a minute. I finished. Thank you.